Most crashes are caused from two things in my opinion. The first, not paying attention, like this guy. Today's video is all about group ride etiquette. Before we start, I want to tell you a funny story. So I'm doing a club race, and this is right when I first started cycling. It's 5 laps, and right at the beginning, another guy and I break away together, the two of us. The two of us go equal pulls for 4 laps. So for the last 12K, I sit on. And just as we're gonna hit the finish line, I come around him and I go to sprint and I'm passing him, and he looks over at me and he says, "Hey, don't be an asshole. I'm winning." And I hit the brakes and I let him go. Again, this is almost 8 years ago, 7-8 years ago, and I've learned a ton from then. And I would handle that situation much differently today. And I'm gonna tell you how I handled it differently later in the video. So today's video is all about how to handle yourself on a group ride, etiquette. Important that I really want to make clear about etiquette in group rides. Part of the struggle that I had was that there was different etiquette for the local meetup ride, the club ride, the race ride with just a couple guys, and there's different etiquette for all those different situations. In this video, I'm only going to focus on the etiquette for the local meetup ride. One of the things that I really struggled with when I first got into cycling was getting the respect from the peloton and my fellow riders, but also trying to win. And for me personally, that was a really hard balance to find. And what I mean by that is, let's say you get into a breakaway. Do you sit on the entire time just to go for the win? Or do you take some pulls? How many pulls do you take? How hard do you pull? Sometimes I would want to just sit on and do nothing because I wanted to win. And then other times I'd be like, well, let's show them how strong I am and pull as hard as I can. And then I got nothing left for the end. So finding that balance was really difficult for me. And I'm going to expand on that as the video goes on, tell you what I've learned over the 8 years on how to manage that. And hopefully it's not an issue for you, but if it is, I'm going to discuss that. I'm also going to be discussing a whole bunch of other etiquette stuff. Have you seen the guy that's too aggressive and you're on a group ride and he's bumping to get in? Have you ever seen the guy that spits, holds out his hand and thinks his hand's gonna stop the spit? We've also seen the guy that sits in the brake, doesn't take one pull because he thinks there's a yellow jersey at the end of the road. And we also seen the half wheeling. So all of this stuff and a lot of other things I'm gonna cover in this video. First, where a lot of etiquette starts with is safety. Most crashes are caused from two things in my opinion. The first, not paying attention, like this guy. The second is erratic riding. Sometimes it's cut and dry and there's a guy just all over the road. And then in other situations, sometimes it's both riders' fault. Here's an interesting clip. I found it really hard when I first got into cycling to stay focused. I remember my first group ride, it was overwhelming because I was locked in, I'm looking around, I'm worried. But I can say the more you ride, the more that becomes instinct, and it becomes a lot easier, second nature, just like driving. In terms of erratic riding, the most important thing is to just stay straight. If you're gonna do something, hand singles, and just act in a predictable manner. But again, this is something you learn over time. This is a reason why you see some cyclists get mad when a rider is riding erratically, because they're worried that person could crash out the whole peloton. And I remember the first club ride I did, I was riding behind a rider on the tops, and this guy came right up beside me. He says, when you're behind someone, you ride on the hoods so you have access to the brakes. You know, I think he could have been nicer to me about it, but it is important that you have access to the brakes immediately. And there's something else that I see happen all the time. There's a group of guys, one of the guys is going after a KOM. It's on a downhill into a stop sign, and he's racing to the end of the KOM, and he's got the group behind him, and it's absolutely dangerous. I've seen guys go right through stop signs into traffic because they were going after a KOM. This, in my opinion, is the kind of stuff that you really got to pay attention to as a new rider, because The more I developed in cycling and the more experienced guys that I knew, the safer they are. And especially when they race at a high level, because the last thing that can happen to them is they crash and get hurt on some club ride or some training ride, and then they can't race. So usually the more experienced the cyclists I see, the less sketchy stuff I see them doing. But again, this is where the etiquette starts, is with safety. And you need to have this safety stuff down. Otherwise, people won't want to ride with you because they will worry that you will crash them out. What makes this difficult for a new rider is their heart rate's up, all their sensors are going, they're just so dialed in, and it's hard to remember this stuff. I can explain the different type of group rides. There's the club ride, and that's completely different. And what makes the club ride different is you usually have to pay membership fees, you have to sign up. Those rides are very organized. Usually there will be a ride leader, they'll send out an email, it'll have a list of all the do's and don'ts. And while you're on the ride, there'll be people telling you what to do, what not to do. And like I keep saying, very organized. So if you are a new cyclist, I highly, highly recommend you join a local club. That's what I did. It helped me tremendously. I can't say enough about it. The next type of group ride is like a local meetup. And what I mean by that is anyone can show up. Then there's some famous ones here in North America, the Shootout in Tucson. They have the Nichols Ride in California, the Donut Ride in Toronto. Anyone can show up to those rides. What makes the club ride and this local meetup ride completely different is that the club ride is managed by someone. You have to have insurance, you pay dues, and there's a leader, there's a club manager, president, all of that stuff. And you can get kicked out of a club ride. I've seen it happen. But with the local meetup ride, there's no one really organizing it. And you can show up there and do whatever you want. The group might not follow you because these rides do follow a structure. Let's use the Shootout in Tucson, for example. You ride easy for the first 45 minutes. You hit Mission Road, boom, 40 minutes, full gas. It ends with this uphill sprint. Then you regroup, go easy, tempo for a bit, go hard, up over Hammer Road, back down Mission, rotating, and then a final sprint at the end. And then there's points in the ride where you can pull off and little groups do other stuff. But basically these group rides that happen every week on the same route have the same format every week. So that's the group ride that we're going to be talking about today. Here are a few things that I've learned doing the local group ride that has really helped me. One is don't be too aggressive. And what I mean by that is, say it's all strung out and it's a hard section, someone taking a big pull on the front and someone needs to get in. Let them in. There's lots of guys I see, they don't let anyone in, they got their elbows out. It's not the Tour de France, and letting the guy in is not going to hurt your position. And if anything, it's easier for you than elbowing some guy. If it's all strung out and it's that hard and someone's fighting just to get in, you're not going to advance anyways at that point. So you're better off just losing one spot. And if you're fifth wheel and you go to sixth, or you're 19th and you go to 20th wheel, it's not really a big deal. It's a bit different if you're in a nationals or you're in some important race. Someone's trying to get in before some critical turn, before a climb, or something really important is going to happen, and losing that one spot matters. But on a club ride, or a group ride, and that goes a long way, because that guy that you let in, when you stop at the gas station or at the coffee shop, it gives you an opportunity to talk to him. And this brings up my next point, is ask a lot of questions. My nickname when I was growing up was 20 questions, and I probably annoyed a lot of people because I asked a lot of questions, but it helped me learn a lot. Where should I attack? Where shouldn't I attack? What's happening here? Who are the hitters? Who are the guys that I should look for? All that information is important, because I give you a great example. I was on the Shootout and 3 of the strongest riders sat at the back for the first 20 minutes, right? And I'm like, oh, what are those guys doing back there? So one guy was a national champion, right? I'm active at the front, and in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I should probably be back there with them. Soon enough, as a lot of guys burnt some matches off the front, these 3 guys came from the back and just lit it up. And because I wasn't back there and wasn't paying attention to what the hitters were doing, when they made their move, I burnt too many matches and I didn't have enough to go with them. So that's why it's important to know who the hitters are, know what's going on, and watch what they're doing. Because if they're sitting at the back, they're waiting, they're biding their time, and they're going to do something big. This is less about etiquette, more about strategy, but it goes to my point. ask questions. It really helped me. And that brings us to spitting. So like I said earlier, we've all seen the guy that sticks his arm out and thinks he's catching the spit. You know, your guy's riding, he goes like this and spits, got the arm out, and he thinks the hand is catching the spit. If you got to spit, go right to the back or go right out to the side and make sure that when you spit or blow your nose, it doesn't hit anyone. I think this is common sense to me, but I'm going to put it out there anyways because I see a lot of guys do it. This hand thing, it does nothing. And if you got guys behind you and you go like this, it's hitting them for sure. Maybe they won't say anything, or maybe it's hitting them and they don't feel it. But simple one, if you got to spit, you got to blow your nose, go to the back or go right out to the side so it doesn't hit anyone. The next one's half wheeling. And so what is half wheeling? It's when you're riding two up and one guy just keeps lifting the pace and the next guy got to keep up, lift, keep up, lift, keep up. That's half wheeling. So the best way to do this is if you end up at the front and it's two abreast and you're riding along, just talk to the guy beside you. Say, how's this pace? Is this good? Should we lift a little bit? And just communicate. It's a lot easier than just turning it into something that it shouldn't be, which is a race. If you're feeling a little feisty, you could look at them and say, hey, you want to pick it up a little bit? But just be respectful here because no one likes that. It's because you don't know how dead the guy is. And what I mean by that is he could have told himself, I'm going to bury myself on the hard section, have nothing left for when he's in the two abreast section. And he just doesn't want to go that hard. So that's why it's important not to half wheel and communicate if the pace seems off to you. And it goes a long way, and a lot of guys will really respect that. How do you balance respect from your fellow riders and going for the win? I think what I would recommend is it's a group ride, is go out there, try new things, give it your all. Don't worry about getting dropped, because you're better off going out, trying your hardest, getting dropped, knowing where that limit is, coming back next week and trying something different. And talk to the fitter guys and ask them questions and tell them, hey, I'm worried about getting dropped. What do you think I should do? Or is there some spots that maybe I could try being active? Don't be scared to get dropped. Go out there, get active, do your thing, because the only way you're going to learn is if you fail, unfortunately. The next one, have fun, because that's the thing I love about cycling. When I go out there on these group rides, I have so much fun. I love talking to the guys. I love testing myself. I love it. So I think that's the most important. Have a good time. So let's go back to the story at the beginning where I told you I sat on the guy's wheel for the last lap and then he called me an asshole as I was going by him. How would I handle that differently today? First of all, I wouldn't have sat on the entire lap. If that was today, I would try and do something different. I would either attack him, or I would tell him I'm sitting on, I'd communicate with him. But if I was so messed up that I had to sit on, because the reason I sat on is I was scared. I was scared if I did something, I would get dropped. The confidence comes with more experience, so I had to go through that at the time. And if I went back, I'd probably have to do the same. I'd probably do the same thing because I didn't know any better. So what I would do today is I would be more active in that last lap, maybe attack, do something, see how he's feeling. And then if I was so screwed that I had to sit on, I would have sat on and I would have jumped him at the end and I wouldn't have hit the brakes because it's a race. And if you called me an asshole, I would have just kept going and I would have said, sorry, did you expect any different? This is a bike race. So those are the two things I would have done different. I would have been more active on the last lap and I wouldn't have hit the brakes. I would have tried to beat him because I think it was unreasonable for him to think if I was sitting on the last lap that I wasn't going to go for the win, right? You know, there are personalities in cycling, nothing against the guy, but that's how I would have handled it differently. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'd love to hear your comments on cycling etiquette. It's an interesting sport with a steep learning curve, definitely at the beginning. So please please subscribe if you're finding value out of these videos so you're notified for my upcoming videos. It helps me out so much. Please comment. I love to hear from you. I'll see you on the next video. I'll see you soon. Bye.